The North American Society for the Psychology of Sport and Physical Activity, NASPSPA, will celebrate its 50th anniversary in June of 2017. As part of the celebrations, it was decided that we would interview the previous distinguished scholars. My name is Penny McCullough, and today I will be chatting with Dr. Richard Magill. Through 2016, NASPSPA has named 24 distinguished scholars. Dr. Magill was named a distinguished scholar in 2016. This interview is being conducted in February of 2017. Good afternoon, Dr. Magill. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you, Penny.
That's great. So, Dr. Magill, tell us a little bit about your academic background.
Well, as it relates to my work at NASPSPA, I guess I should, I did my master's degree in physical education at Temple, and then I worked for a couple of years at a small liberal arts college in which I was teaching mostly activity classes and coaching wrestling and baseball. And then I decided I wanted to go on to get a PhD, so I decided to go to Florida State. I visited there, met with Bob Singer, and decided he'd be a good person for me to work with, so I applied and was accepted there and started my PhD work there in the motor learning area. And then after I graduated with my PhD, I went from there to my first post-PhD job was at Texas A&M University in the Department of Health and Physical Education. I stayed there for 4 years and then had the opportunity to go to Louisiana State University, where I ended up staying for 29 years. And for the last 7 years, I've been in New York City after leaving LSU, and I've been working part-time teaching at New York University and Teachers College, Columbia University. And that brings us to where I am today.
That's great. And tell us a little bit about your first involvement and exposure to research, how you got interested in the research angle.
Okay. Well, one of the first classes Bob Singer had all of his students take was both a motor learning course and a research methods course, and he taught both of them. And for the motor learning course he required us all to do a small research project. And that was my first involvement in actually doing research related to a motor learning topic. And that actually led to a publication in Journal of Motor Behavior, which was my first research publication. So that's how I got.
What was the topic of that one?
It was about
you remember
knowledge of. Yeah, it was. It was about trying to relate knowledge of results in motor skill learning to short-term memory.
Okay, great. And then tell us a little bit about your doctoral dissertation.
Well, I stayed with that same theme. I was really, when I was at Florida State, it was in the early 70s, and it was a time of what they called the cognitive revolution in study of human learning and behavior. And so one of the things I got interested in was trying to look at what did some of the work that was being done by the people in cognitive psychology, how might that relate to the learning of motor skills? And so one of the things that was of interest was the study of human memory, which was prolific at that time. And I was always interested, well, based on the theory that was of Jack Adams, and he was promoting the importance of knowledge of results in learning of skills, and I thought that there was a nice connection between the use of knowledge of results for learning as it relates to especially short-term memory. And so my dissertation looked at what was known as the interval of time after a person receives knowledge of results before they can try the task again. And I wanted to see if there was any relationship between findings in typical short-term memory research and in the learning of motor skills. So I did some interventions in that post-knowledge of results interval and based on what had been shown in the research literature on short-term memory effects, and that was it.
That was great.
I mean,
yes, I believe one of my master's students followed up on some of your research.
Oh, great.
So, Dr. Magill, your distinction of becoming a Distinguished Scholar of NASPA recognizes your long-standing contributions in the areas represented by your research. We'd now like you to share some thoughts on your scholarly endeavors. So, what sort of research interests did you have early on, and did you continue with those over time? Or if you changed your line of research, tell us a little bit about how that happened.
Okay. Well, I think I stayed pretty much with that original interest I had in trying to relate some of the cognitive psychology research findings with the study of motor skill learning, and I stayed with that, and so my early research primarily focused on the knowledge of results topic that I did my dissertation on. And then as we went along, there was some more work being done, and one of the things I got interested in, and especially through the efforts, working with a doctoral student of mine, Tim Lee, he started working on a dissertation related to contextual interference, which fit very nicely because that was so much related to some of the cognitive psychology work that I was interested in. So started to go in that direction. We did several studies related to that. And then I guess after doing some studies on that, stayed with that same sort of cognitive psychology related theme and started looking at the topic of implicit and explicit learning as it relates to learning of motor skills. So I guess throughout the running thing through my whole career has been looking at some of the cognitive psychology issues that I thought might have some relationship to help us better understand the learning of motor skills.
Okay, great. I think you kind of answered the next question, but I'll go ahead and ask you in case there's anything you would like to add. What's the basic research question or underlying issues behind your research, and what have you tried to learn, if you had to sum it up?
Yeah. Well, one of the things that with that cognitive psychology orientation, I think the thing that came out was that there's definitely some relationship between what we know about learning of skills. Motor skills are not so distinct that there's no connection to the cognitive component of our way of thinking and acting. So I think we've learned that there's that relation, and there's a basis in motor learning that is very cognitively based. And I think that's the thing I've really liked about that, is that I've been able to use that to make some very nice connections with people in professional practice who are helping people learn skills, whether they're in physical education or dance teaching or physical therapy, occupational therapy, and all of those. So there's been that, and I think that's been one of the things I've been really pleased about, taking my research in that direction.
Okay, super. So think back, you've certainly done a lot of research over the years. Tell us about a research project that perhaps you were particularly interested in, you feel proud of, or you feel made an impact on the field. And also, were there other researchers that had an influence on you as you did your research?
Probably the research project that I was involved with that I feel most proud of was the work that I did with Tim Lee as part of his dissertation at LSU. And so I felt it was a nice team effort between the two of us. He had the original idea of looking at an issue within contextual interference, and we collaborated very nicely on that. I think its impact was that it suggested a new theoretical basis for why the contextual interference effect occurs, and that's been supported by a number of other researchers. So, and it's been cited a lot by a lot of researchers. So that's probably the one project I've been most proud of.
Okay, great. Now tell us a little bit about your involvement with NASPA over the years.
My very first awareness of NASPA was I had taken the assistant professor position at Texas A&M, and that was in 1974, so we're talking 40-some years ago. And the NASPA conference in 1975, the end of that academic year, was going to be held at University of Texas in Austin. And I had become friends with Juan Sperduso, who was at Texas at the time and was going to be was involved with organizing the conference. And so when I learned about it through her, and I went to that conference with several students from A&M. That was my very first experience, and then from there I just stayed involved. I mean, I was a member for every year to this past year, and served in various capacities. I was secretary treasurer for I think 4 years. For some reason did 2 terms. I can't remember why, but there were 2 terms, and then eventually became president of the organization, which I greatly appreciated the support for that position. And so and then I've stayed active since they started this past president's liaison group, so it gives us a chance to kind of throw in our 2 cents worth of what we think should be being done at the organization level. So that's been plus. So I've just enjoyed staying active. It's been sort of the primary professional and academic society that I've been involved with throughout my whole academic career.
Right, and NASPA certainly appreciates your contributions and leadership contributions. That's absolutely super. What does being named a Distinguished Scholar of NASPA mean to you?
You know, it's really interesting because I was looking at the list of the people who have been designated that. I think you said, what, 25? And I just look at that
24.
group, and I remember the 24. I remember the first one who was Franklin Henry, and I was just astonished, when he received that award, because he was such a well-known figure, and so when I was awarded, I just thought, wow, how can I be in that same group? And so there just a tremendous amount of gratitude for the society and the people in the society for considering me to be in that same category of people.
Thank you. And then just one last question. Do you have any thoughts you'd like to share, or ideas about where the field is going, or ideas for young professionals coming up through the field? Anything else that you would like to share? Even my own doctoral students, one of the things I would always emphasize to them was, just to be active in their research and share it with others. And NASPA becomes an incredibly good outlet for sharing research with others. And in addition, I encourage them to go to NASPA not only to share their research, but to start to meet people, and the connections that are made at those meetings last a lifetime. I have longtime friends that it's like an annual reunion going to the NASPA meeting. So I think that's to encourage young scholars who are getting into the field to make sure that they find a home like NASPA to share the research with, and to develop their scholarly as well as personal connections. Right. Well, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you at the 50th anniversary. I understand that you're coming to that, and that will be a wonderful celebration. And thank you for taking the time to chat with us today.
You bet. I'm really looking forward to the 50th anniversary. That's great, and appreciate all your efforts on that behalf. Okay. Thanks, Penny.
Okay, we'll see you soon. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.